Welcome back, Mr. Goodberry. The First Star Logistics studio is fully equipped and ready to record.
Welcome back to Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. I'm your host, Joe Goodberry, and free agency has begun. The Bengals being aggressively underwhelming, I'd say, on day one. Not really moving the needle so far. We will recap all the moves. I'm recording this at midnight, Monday night. So by the time this airs, there's probably a few more moves. If you're looking for my analysis on that, we'll get to it Friday. If you need it now, head on over to Twitter on X at Joe Goodberry. Make sure you follow First Star Logistics while you're there at First Star Log. And let's dive in because the Bengals first started with a couple releases. We had a retirement of Sam Hubbard since the last time we spoke, which was expected, but Alex Kappa, Sheldon Rankins released. Alex Kappa found a job right away with the Raiders. Sheldon Rankins signed back with the Texans. So whatever that means for us or for them, good for them though, especially good for Alex Kappa to land on his feet so quickly. He was a good player for the Bengals for the most part until this final year where it looked like injuries took their toll on his play. The Bengals, though, quickly extended Mike Gesicki before the tampering period opened Monday at noon. They signed him a couple days before that, which is significant because they haven't extended a player of their own, to a multi-year deal before the day free agency kicks off or legal tampering kicks off since 2015. Rey Maualuga, 2015. It's been 10 years. I don't think fans of other teams recognize the type of punishment we have had to deal with as Bengals fans when it comes to free agency. Not only did they not used to really be active at all. If you're a new fan, Bengals we suggest free agency is not a thing. We don't do that. It's like the Cowboys right now. Bengals really didn't dive in, really didn't sign anyone. And then they went a long time without really getting an impact player in free agency. You get a Brandon LaFell once in a while. They made a trade for Reggie Nelson, but not the same thing, so never really a big time free agent. Go back even further. Terrell Owens was fun, but again, 1 year, almost minimum deal. There wasn't a lot until 2020 and then 2021 and 2022, 3 years in a row there of signing free agents. And then even 23 when they got Orlando Brown Jr. The Bengals have been much more active the last 5 years in free agency. Getting a guy extended before he has to go into free agency and see what his market is significant. And the Bengals do that with Mike Gesicki on a 3-year, $25.5 million deal. And there's a little bit of a sticker shock there. Like, whoa, you're giving him more than $8 million a year. It's a little bit more than we thought he will, especially when you consider last year what he made. Quadrupled his salary, basically. Good for Mike Gesicki, good for the Bengals to retain him. I think he's a good fit. I think he fits the offense. I think he fits the personality of the team, especially for a team that wants to throw the ball as much as they do. Gesicki ran routes 91% of the time from wide receiver or from the slot receiver spot. He's a wide receiver 3, and I've talked about this before. Drew Sample still last year played the most snaps of any tight end on the roster, which is why I still think they could upgrade tight end 1 in Drew Sample, whether that's through the draft or maybe there's a value free agent that's still sitting there, as a week or two from now. But just on Gesicki, the only thing I really have an issue with is, and we'll get to this when we look at the cap a little bit more. I mentioned it on Twitter, but the Bengals are still not squeezing the cap this year. When you look at Mike Gesicki and you see his $7.8 million cap hit, we're still going to get in final numbers on all these guys, so I can only talk about the ones that look like they're finalized. But when you see that cap hit, it could have been much smaller. It could have gotten it down to like $5 million and had bigger hits in future years, especially in years when you're going to cut him anyway. But the Bengals are so concerned with dead money, they champion it. We don't have dead money. And look at the Eagles. They're stupid with all that dead money they have. It's like, come on. I'll trade a Super Bowl for $500 million of dead money. I'd like to ask Troy and Katie Blackburn, would you guys make that same trade? I'm not sure they would, but as fans, I think we would for sure. So the Mike Gesicki deal is good, and it gets someone done, and it's significant because they get him done early before free agency actually kicks off. The next deal was Cody Ford returning on a modest deal. It wasn't a lot, and it wasn't meant to be a lot. At first, I thought some of the wording around some of the reports of him being retained was odd, saying like maybe he's going to be a starter, but he only got 2 years, $6 million. So $3 million. You can split that, and it's a little bit more in year 2 than it is in year 1. They can cut him after a year if they need to. He got paid primary backup money, 6th, 7th offensive lineman type money. 2 to 3 million is what backup key role players make, and that's what he got. Sure, they're going to say he is going to have a chance to compete for the left guard spot or even right guard, whatever it may be. He's going to have a chance to compete for a spot. I don't buy it at all. I still think the Bengals are going to sign a free agent. I still think they're going to draft a guard fairly highly as long as it lines up correctly in April. We like Cody Ford, though, for his versatility, ability to step in. He's not going to get you killed, but he's not a good player. I think every time I watched film, I came away less impressed than the way I felt while watching the game live. So that tells you typically when you put the guy under the microscope and he doesn't look so hot, sometimes it's because he's not very good. And having said that, you need versatile backups that can fit in numerous positions. I don't like him as much at tackle, but I don't mind him at guard for as negative as I sounded there. At guard, serviceable. At tackle, trying to get out of that game as fast as possible if he has to play. The next one for the Bengals was after free agency has started. First move we were waiting on. We were wondering where they're going to go. Is it going to be a defensive end? Is it going to be a defensive tackle? Is it going to be a guard? And it was retaining one of their own again in veteran and captain. I mean, at this point, he's going to be a captain on the defense anyway. BJ Hill, which caps off one of the best trades they've ever made in 2021 when they traded Billy Price for BJ Hill. Hill now getting his second contract with the Bengals, which is a pretty rare thing. Number one, that it's a third contract that the Bengals are handing out, which all these guys I'm going to talk about that they signed were 29, 28, 29, 30 years old. The Bengals have made a shift here since 2023 and even 2023, other than Orlando Brown Jr. They've gotten a little bit older and their deals have gotten smaller. So 2-year deals at guys that are 28, 29, 30, even Trent Brown last year was older than that. It's interesting the area they're attacking, and I wonder if it's because of how they do contracts. They're finding players to be more receptive to their type of deal when they're a little bit older. So BJ Hill probably went out there. There were some projections that he'd get $15-16 million. Clearly, he didn't get that out there. And the Bengals said, hey, we'll take you back at 11. 16 million guaranteed, 3 years, 33 million. So 11 per year, 16 million guaranteed, which is basically his first year. And maybe there's a roster bonus, but his first year signing and plus a signing bonus. We'll have to see what that cap hit looks like. I'm thinking it's $8 to $9 million based on the numbers we've gotten so far. And again, BJ Hill, like these other two guys, it's an extension. You haven't gotten better. You haven't gotten worse as long as he doesn't fall off a cliff. Again, a 3-year deal in free agency typically looks like a 2-year deal. You can get out of the third year relatively easy. So if he's still good at ages 30 and 31, it's understandable that he could see that third year with the Bengals. But we just cut a bunch of guys. The Bengals just cut, guys in the last year of their deal. Sheldon Rankins, Sam Hubbard, and Alex Kappa. And they could also do the same with Geno Stone and Jermaine Pratt. So the last year is typically fake, right? You can maneuver out of that if you need to. But BJ Hill doesn't solve first the good. They needed a baseline starter at defensive tackle. With McKinley Jackson and Chris Jenkins, those gets your defensive tackle 3 and 4. I need my 1 and 2. BJ Hill is a solid defensive tackle number 2. He could start for a lot of teams in the league as a DT number 2. He can play the 5 tech, the 3 tech, the 0 and the 1 at nose. He can move all across. He can do a lot of things for you. He's even played some defensive end for the Bengals in different packages. His pass rush has declined slightly. He can still give you 40 pressures, 5 sacks a year. And guys that get that are getting paid. He's been incredibly consistent over his career, and especially since he joined the Bengals in 2021. So 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 5 years with the Bengals. He's been, you get 40 pressures, 5 sacks. I will take that for my defensive tackle number 2. Hopefully he ages gracefully over the next couple of years. But so far, so good. I don't think he's shown maybe just the first sign of slowing down. We'll have to see how much that bleeds into his age 30 season. But the negative of that is he's not a defensive tackle number 1. And they're still going to need to find that guy, whether that's in the draft or free agency. At this point, we know that their next signing ended up being another defensive tackle, and we'll get to that. I wanted to finish the guys they extended first. The next guy was Joseph Osai. Now, there's a lot of rumors about what the Bengals are going to do at defensive end, right? Because they have Trey Hendrickson apparently on the trade block. I don't think they want to trade him. I think, based on reports, Trey's agent said he can get a first-round pick back for the Bengals. I don't think that's happening. So if he's going around telling teams, yeah, they want a first-round pick, well, I don't think they're going to get very far. And I don't think they're going to get a lot of teams to start negotiating money when they believe the Bengals want a first rounder. So maybe a high second round team would jump in and can convince the Bengals. Otherwise, I don't see it happening. I think we've had Washington get interested, and then they traded for Laramie Tunsil, the left tackle from the Texans. I think we've had the Packers jump in and be interested, and more than likely balk at that offer sheet or the third round projection. I'm sorry. First round projection. I have got too many reports and rumors going in my head. The Packers likely balked at a first round request. I think they would give a third round pick. That's what I wanted to say. But because of the way the free agency has gone, especially at the edge room or the edge players that were available, defensive end players, it's dried up pretty quickly. If you weren't getting Josh Sweat or Chase Young, you really weren't going to find a capable high-end starter at defensive end. And I think that increases the likelihood that the Bengals and Trey Hendrickson get back to the table and figure something out. In the meantime, the Bengals needed to keep Joseph Osai, in my opinion. Osai, one of the youngest players in free agency, not even 25 yet. His birthday is coming up. But he's played just 1,000 snaps for the Bengals after being a third-round pick. This is a guy who was a great prospect, had production, athleticism, and good tape. But played linebacker at Texas, was transitioning to a defensive end, edge rusher role that last year there, was really good, but needed some development. And then he missed his entire rookie year, and then over the last 3 years, played about 1,000 snaps, just over. So he's getting about 300 and something snaps per season. That's a slow development. Last year was his best year, playing the second most defensive end snaps for the team, getting 5.5 sacks, finishing the season very, very strong. I think he's a high effort player with good athleticism that can move all across your defensive line, right end, left end, defensive tackle. We've seen him all over the place. I think Joseph Osai still has a 10 sack season in his DNA. Can the Bengals get it out of him? And if they can, he's going to make a lot more money in 2026, as by then he'll still only be 25 years old, turning 26 shortly in free agency. So he bet on himself. 1 year, $7 million. Interesting deal, because that 1 year, $7 million means you can't really hide the cap hit. Maybe the Bengals put a void year on the end and split a little bit of that $7 million into year 2. But if not, then you're taking a $7 million cap hit. Maybe there's some incentives there to get it up to 7. Otherwise, that's a big cap hit for Joseph Osai to get $7 million in year 1. And again, we're just talking about the cash $7 million. That makes sense for him. But a cap hit of $7 million is high. You don't have to have the same cash and cap number, right? We've seen the Eagles. We went over this. We did a video on cash versus cap. The Eagles will put the cap hit low, give the player a lot of cash. The Bengals will give the player a lot of cash, make the cap hit high. And that makes it harder for them to fit more players and quality players under their preferred structure and under the cap. But because of what I was going to say is you could have gotten two guys probably for the same cap hit, Joseph Osai and Azeez Ojulari from the Giants. I want to make sure I say his name correctly. If you spread that out a little bit more. And I don't feel like the Bengals should be done at defensive end. I feel like Myles Murphy and Joseph Osai should be defensive ends number 3 and 4 on a good pass rush team. Then you have Trey Hendrickson and who as your number 2? Hendrickson's 1. Who's the number 2 on this pass rush team? Is it somebody in free agency? Is it somebody in the draft? You can't say Osai and just expect that to be okay. He hasn't played full starter snaps. He's been injured multiple times, and he hasn't developed into that guy. You can't just give that to him. I would like to see him earn it a little bit more. So now, halfway through the show, we get some outside free agents, sort of. And I say that because the first guy they signed that was an outside free agent is Samaje Perine at running back. That Samaje Perine, the one we know and love, Samaje Perine, now just older. 2 years, $3.6 million. It's really cheap. That's as cheap as it probably gets. Minimum contract for him. We'll see if we ever see year 2 of it. Here's what he's still the same guy. I've got clips here. He can still pass protect. He can still give you some power. He can still catch the ball. Fine. The Bengals don't have anything behind Chase Brown right now at running back. They needed something. And Perine is super cheap. Probably spells the end of Zach Moss. We'll probably see Zach Moss released as soon as he's medically cleared. Or maybe they come to an agreement on a medical settlement, a health settlement, where you say, hey, you know what, we'll give you this much, or you take this much, and we'll call it even. And I think Perine, at best, to me, at best case scenario, is Perine is running back number 3. And that it draft running back number 2. And you have guys that you have a young stable in front. Perine can be some power, can be some pass protection. He knows the scheme and knows the offense. He should be able to fit easily. And it gives them another option in the run game, something they didn't have. It's an upgrade from what they had at running back last year at running back 2 and running back 3. They didn't have that. So small, how much are we moving the needle? I think it just, not much, but I think it just flicked. I think I saw something for upgrading the depth at running back. The next one was TJ Slayton, Daryl Slayton, the nose tackle from the Packers. Just finished his 4th year of his rookie contract. He's been the nose for them, especially when Jerry Montgomery was there, the new Bengals defensive line coach, especially interior defensive line coach. He was there with the Packers when Slayton was developing. Slayton's played a lot of nose for them in his first 3 years, not so much. Last year, they changed their defense up. When he was at nose, he looked very good. And he's like 6'4", 330, not 340. He looks big. And a decent, nimble athlete for his size. Very good run defender in ways. He can be very disruptive. He can be very hard to move and block. There are times where I feel like he doesn't locate the ball or is slow to react. Maybe he's just not that good of an athlete, right? And that could be the case. Because you look at like his PFF grades, they don't really say he's a good run defender. You look at ESPN run stop rate, and he's number 1 in the entire league for run stop rate at defensive tackle. That's very good. And if that's the case, you can watch a couple games and put clips on, and we will watch film of these new guys. Now, right now, we're just talking through it, and it's late, and news goes fast. But they get to Slayton for 2 years, $15.1 million. That's not bad. $7.5 million. We'll see what the cap hit looks like again. Did they overinflate it year 1? Did they put a void year at the end like the Eagles would to try and pack the roster a little bit more? These are things I'm not expecting, but it's the standard. So I'm going to say it until they start doing these things. Slayton's not a pass rusher. So now paired with BJ Hill, Slayton's your nose tackle, and then you got BJ Hill. You're defending the run better, but you're not rushing the passer still. This is a bottom pass rush team. They need to find a lot of pass rush win rate and sacks and pressures in order to be a championship caliber team. And so far, they've added none of that because Slayton is basically Jay Tufele as a pass rusher. A little bit better, but that's basically what he is. Not good enough. You can't have that. So now he's not going to play in your nickel packages. Who's your nickel defensive tackles? Is it Joseph Osai getting kicked inside next to BJ Hill? We've seen that. It's not good enough. So we got to figure out what they can do there. We've got our 4 defensive tackles. They're going to play a lot. Even defensive tackle 3 and 4, Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, will play a ton. 400 snaps each if you split it evenly. That's a lot of development time. Is it good enough? This looks like on paper the worst defensive tackle grouping in the NFL, but they can be good against the run. Okay, we'll take that. You better find some pass rushers on the edge spot. The Bengals didn't do that on day one. They finished their outside free agents with linebacker Oren Burks, former third-round pick, 88 overall in 2018 out of Vanderbilt. Oren Burks is an athlete, a little bit undersized coming out, needed development, was productive coming out as well. Went to the Packers, drafted by the Packers, went to the 49ers, and then the Eagles this past year. He's also going to be 30 this season. Burks is a guy I liked coming out. I remember I used to get him in mock drafts and stuff for the Bengals in 2018. But when I watched the Eagles this past season, especially in the second half of the year when he had to play when Nakobe Dean went down, and watching the playoffs and Super Bowl, Oren Burks was amazing. He was so good that I haven't seen him in a while, and I thought, wow, he has really, really developed. The Eagles linebacker coach, though, may be a linebacker whisperer. But the Bengals didn't give him much. They gave him 2 years for $5 million total. So that's $2.5 million a year. And then Akeem Davis-Gaither signed right after, within the hour, to the Arizona Cardinals for a lot more money, 2 years, $11 million. So Oren Burks will replace Akeem Davis-Gaither, very similar player in terms of athleticism, size. He will replace him as linebacker number 3, and he might be able to do some nickel cover linebacker with Logan Wilson, depending on who the other linebacker ends up being. Is it Jermaine Pratt? Is it someone they draft? Whoever it may be, it could be Logan Wilson or Oren Burks as your 2 in that scenario. But here's what Burks really stands out and shines. He's played a ton. Samaje Perine as well. We talked a lot about special teams. Bengals had number 1 special teams unit based on PFF grades. Samaje Perine, Oren Burks have played a ton of special teams in their careers. Oren Burks is basically a special teams captain and an ace, can play every single position or every single special teams. I like it. I like the signing. He was tremendous in the playoffs for the Eagles. Does it move the needle? Does it make a difference? I don't know. You're at this point, you've lost Mike Hilton. Trey Hendrickson doesn't know if he's coming back. We don't know if he's coming back. And you've retained everyone else except you traded DJ Reader for TJ Slayton, and you traded Akeem Davis-Gaither for Oren Burks. This is one of the worst defenses in the league. And we're going to need a little bit more than that. You need to make a bigger splash than that, I would assume. There's still that more to go. It's 1 day of free agency. And by the time you're reading this or watching this, they may have already signed another defensive end or linebacker, or maybe they went out and got Javon Holland at safety. And then that would move the needle. But as of right now, they haven't done anything. As I'm recording this, they haven't done anything to move the needle to make you think things are going to be better. They haven't signed a guard. I want to think that they value the guard position. Finally. Not there yet. They haven't extended Trey Hendrickson. They haven't extended T. Higgins, Jamar Chase. Recent reports say they're close to the 2 of them. Ian Rappaport on NFL Network. Or no, he was on of NFL Network. He was on with Pat McAfee, saying he thinks they're close and would be shocked if they didn't get done. That's good news, but they're not done. Cap space is drying up because you haven't signed these guys. That will reduce the cap hits when you extend them. You haven't done that yet. So what are we waiting for? Let's get in and get those guards today on Tuesday. By now, they may have already signed them. Here's what I'm thinking. Go get Tevin Jenkins. He's still there. He's one of the youngest linemen. You made that mistake years previous when you drafted Jackson Carman. Instead, go right some wrongs. Go get Tevin Jenkins. Give him a 3-year deal. 3-year, $30 million, and let's roll. That's my guess. If I want to give a late prediction as we're wrapping this up. I'm wearing my First Star Logistics First Star Draft Party sweater. I got this when they had their first draft party. That was the year they drafted Miles Murphy. But they're having another one. Details are coming out. You see all that. Day 2 of the draft. They'll fly me out there. We'll be there. There'll be a whole bunch of other people. Cool people. There was food last time and drinks and giveaways and prizes and everyone hanging out and chatting and having a good time while they put on a show as well. So you may be interested in that. And I'm interested if the Bengals are going to make a difference in free agency. This has been Bengals on the Brain, presented by First Star Logistics. Until next time, Houday.
Hey, Dave Lapham here. While games are over for the season, there's no off-season for the First Star Media Group or First Star Logistics. Join me in the trenches and Joe Goodberry of Bengals on the Brain here on the First Star Media Group YouTube channel. First Star Logistics gave away great prizes during the season, which will continue with exclusive content and special giveaways during the off-season. So please subscribe to the channel and hit the like button to help us continue to grow the channel.